This is Coach Corey Doggs of Action Coach, and I'm excited to have Ashley Quinto Powell from MyVA.rocks with us today. Ashley is a serial entrepreneur and a national speaker. She's the author of Executive Motherhood, The Art of Having It All Without Doing It All, and the founder of the virtual assistant agency MyVA.rocks. She's spoken about motherhood for TEDx, Anita.org, the University of Chicago's Polsky Center, and many others. She lives in Madison with her husband and 2 children, and her business, MyVA.rocks, their mission is to fundamentally change the way people work by radically supporting and up-leveling their clients while creating hyper-flexible, joyful work for their team. They match their community of top talent with an ever-expanding omni-industry clientele who start out needing a boost operating their businesses, but then have a tendency to get hooked once they begin to receive that support and understand the power and the potential of what can be accomplished, generally start expanding their VA roster from 1 to some. Something unique about Ashley, there is a children's book about her. Not many people can say that. Her favorite thing to do in her downtime is hang out with her family and train her dog. Something she's most proud of, the team they put together at MyVA.rocks. The men and women at MyVA.rocks are the most talented, generous, and uniquely awesome group of people she's ever had the privilege to work with. So with that, it's my pleasure to welcome Ashley Quinto Powell to the show today. Hello, Ashley.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
No problem. All right, so now we want to get into the question part of the interview. First one, tell us a bit about your personal story, kind of where you were born, or where you grew up, family, hobbies, that kind of thing.
So I'm originally from Chicago, and I started my first business in my early 20s. It was a platform for costume jewelry. And since then, that first business was a total flop. But that was almost 20 years ago now. And I have had quite a few in between and quite a few corporate jobs. And now I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, and working on a business that I really, really love.
Awesome. What about hobbies? What kind of hobbies do you have?
Well, my hobbies, I do a lot of artsy stuff. I make models and I paint, but I have 2 kids, so and they're 9 and 11. So actually, probably, if I'm being really honest, my hobby is being a taxi driver to them.
Yes. All right. I can relate. Those days are behind me, though.
Yeah.
Next question. What's a funny story your family tells about you that you'd be willing to share?
Well, there are really all sorts of funny stories, and entrepreneurship is a really interesting one. Lately, my kids have figured out that I'm the CEO, and that's pretty neat, and they're kind of taken by it. And so every once in a while, my daughter will say something like, my mom's the CEO. Whose mom is the CEO? It's really really taken with that. But in terms of a really, really funny story, I'm afraid I'm not as prepared as I thought I was. Well, I'll tell a little bit of a story on myself, and that is that I really, really love galas. And one of my favorite things to do is participate in the auctions and in the silent auctions.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have really, really a lot of sort of random golf packages and evenings of theater and weekends away. And so one of my favorite things to do is to scare the hair off my husband by almost winning live auctions every time we go to a gala.
Oh, that's fun. All right, thanks for sharing. Next question. Tell us a story about how MyVA.rocks came about, and at what point did you have the confidence that you could do it?
Well, I certainly had a lot of hubris in my, not to be confused with confidence, running my first business. And like I said, that was a flop. And I had really invested so much time and so much money into an industry that I didn't know much about. And I'm thankful, looking back, it got me into tech and gave me a really good foundation for the next step of my career. But following that, I was really, really afraid to have all of my income and all of my family's incoming money be dependent entirely on me. And I said a lot, actually, that I would always do something on the side, but that someone else needed to be responsible for money coming into my account every Friday as promised. And actually, as it turns out, lots of people can mess that up, including me. And it was, it was 2018 before I was really willing and ready to go off truly on my own again. Um, and I think, like many other small business owners, a lot of that is a white knuckle experience. And that's certainly what it was for me when I first went off on my own. I had 2 kids in private school and a stay-at-home husband and a mortgage on our place in Madison and rent on a place in Chicago. And I had a ton of pressure, but also uh, like really great ideas and a ton of energy behind it. And you hear entrepreneurs talk a lot about how they're not even they're like I remember hearing Kate Spade on How I Built This talk about how if she had had a day job when she started her line, she might not have made it. The pressure was really important. And I think I sort of knew that even at the time, that the pressure would be really, really important, that businesses are make it or break it. And it's important to feel that way, because they really, they deserve a chance to walk on their own.
All right. So you started one, didn't go well, and said, you know what, I can do this. Whole different model, husband, 2 kids, and just jump right back in and build MyVA.rocks to what it is today.
Well, I actually, to be fair, My VA.rocks was not the business that I built at first.
Oh, it wasn't.
When I went off on my own, it was actually to join a wedding registry for art. It was
Oh,
a
okay.
great startup, and I joined as a co-founder and their chief revenue officer. And then I needed to do other things to keep money coming in. And so I did a lot of consulting. And my consulting business was focused on revenue generation, many times for software development firms and marketing agencies. And that's what I did in 2018. I sort of quickly figured out that I didn't love being the CRO of a wedding registry for art, and I really did love consulting. And so I consulted for a few years, and then MyVA.rocks was one of the businesses that I started during that time. I had networking groups, and I had another jewelry line, and I mean, the reason you and I met, Corey, is because I was aware right from the start that MyVA.rocks would be a little bit different and bigger. It would seem like a better opportunity, and so I actually hooked up with Action Coach really early on, and and specifically for MyVA.rocks, I had a one-person consulting firm. So I didn't really need Action Coach for that business, but I really needed it to build what MyVA.rocks is today.
Okay. Okay. Good. The next question is, tell us more about MyVA.rocks. So when did you actually start it, and what do you guys do, and who's your ideal client and things like that?
Well, I started this business in May of 2021 and spun it out of my consulting company in July of that year, when it was clear it was going to be a thing. And we're a virtual assistant agency, and people call us usually when they feel really like they're totally ready for their first employee, but then absolutely not ready for their first employee. It's a really good place for us.
Mhm.
And we now we have 60 virtual assistants, and we grow a little every month, and we've just launched a virtual assistant school to teach aspiring virtual assistants how to be VAs. We also do a fair amount of grant writing with our nonprofit team, and we do an amazing amount of social media as well. And most of our clients are consultants or solo entrepreneurs. And then about 25% of our company does support for entire executive teams. So we'll have 3 or 4 clients that share a VA at one company.
All right. What a great model. Next question. Tell us a story of where someone pushed or inspired you that you could do it, and the impact that that pushing had on you.
Well, certainly the coaches at Action Coach, without exaggeration, were really, really instrumental in that early push. And there were some times, especially at Growth Club, actually, where I sort of understood, like, oh, I think we're making it. Like, I think we're doing it. And at one point I remember being just astonished that was the case, and had sort of a revelation in mid Growth Club. But I have a really, really good support system around me of friends and family. My husband is an incredible support. We call him the GHOAT, the GHOAT, which stands for Greatest Husband of All Time. And he is he's quite a cheerleader. And I really credit him with, every time I'm sort of stuck or have a crisis of confidence, there he is telling me that I can do it and to get up there, Peanut.
Well, and to your reference to Growth Club, it's fun to be on my side of the fence as one of the coaches on our team, just to take our clients and even non-clients through the planning process. And as they continue to come to those, just to see them grow. And you were one of those clients. I mean, just to see, like, first time you're like, what is this planning thing? How does this work? And then, it's just cool to see the evolution occur live and in person, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what's been your biggest learning as a business owner?
Well, I try to run everything with a design thinking approach. And certainly the differences between my first business to this business, which is my 7th or 8th. And I've got 9 and 10 in the works too. But now, instead of sort of going all in on an idea that I'm confident will work, now we run small experiments. We always have an MVP, a minimum viable product that we launch first, that just tests the concept. I've been really lucky in that I haven't ever been, actually, since that first business, I have never been so emotionally tied to a business that I am unwilling to see it fail. And part of the work that I do really, really early on in anything is figure out who the buyer is and what they're actually going to pay. And when I talk to other business owners, that's a challenge. You have to have people who are going to pay for your whatever it is that you're doing or selling. And people can get caught up in, oh, I just know this will work, or I have people who say that they will buy it. Until there is a check written and committed, you don't have a buyer. And so there have been a couple of experiments that I have run. One in particular for my consulting company, I had a client who said, you should have small groups and do accountability. And she set it up exactly how she wanted it to run. And I said, well, okay, that sounds like you've done all the legwork. And so I sent out something saying, okay, we're going to run this first one and see what happens. And here's the price point. And nobody signed up for it, not even her. And so it was a really good lesson for me that until you have people committed and people are actually willing to put down money, you don't really have something that'll sell. And so that's one of my philosophies, and one of the things that has kept me really, really safe, and quells the risk of being too precious about something because you just love an idea, but it's got to be a viable idea.
Well, having a strong mentor and peer group is important for everybody and anybody. But the next question is, there's been ups and downs, COVID, all that stuff in the business world. Business in general has ups and downs, right? So what's been a big challenge through the years that someone stepped in to really help you get through it?
Um,
Can
I
you think
have
of
had,
one?
it is hard to pick just one. Um, I've had some really tough days. Um, and it's not, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. And so even in my family, there are sort of days, like my dad talks about a day that he calls the blowout. That was, he owned a brokerage firm that traded on the Kansas City Board of Trade, and they had sort of inadvertently cornered one of the markets. And it blew up in everyone's faces, and it was a pretty dark day. And now he tells it like it's a funny story. I think it must have been 25 years before it was a funny story. But the stuff for me is all around, because my business is essentially people on both sides. And I think I'm at a point where I understand my clients a little bit better. For MyVA.rocks, all of the really tough stuff was in figuring out who our clients were and who they were not. I remember having a client who was just screaming at one of our VAs over something that wasn't, nobody should be screamed at, period. And our client was really taking a lot of anger out on this poor VA. And we sort of examined the situation afterwards and identified all of the things that were leading up to it. And um, what I determined was the woman didn't have a profitable business, and she was putting a lot of pressure on the VA to make the business profitable, and that's just not the role of a VA. And so now one of the things that we look for is, do you have a good business, and can you do you know enough about what makes you profitable to teach a VA how to do those processes? And if you don't have them, your business is too new really to work with a VA. And that's that certainly took a lot of maturity in our business, because it is really hard to turn down business when you're brand new. And now we we're just really tight on who we serve and how we do that best. And setting both the VA and the client up for success is really, really important to us.
Awesome. What's the next big thing for you and MyVA.rocks?
It's definitely the virtual assistant school. The school is called Rock Solid VA Academy. And, we've learned so much about client care and so much about how to serve people virtually. And at the same time, there's a real need for remote flexible jobs in the workforce, especially for caregivers and women coming back to work, but who are balancing childcare duties. And it's really, really important to me to create that economic opportunity. And we're excited about being able to pull VAs from that pool as well,
Mhm.
people who who've been trained in our way of doing things and are making it work.
So have you launched that yet?
So we are in an internal beta now, and it will go live for the general public on July 1st.
All right. Um, One more question before we wrap up is, what advice do you have for business owners who are trying to do it on their own?
Well, it takes a lot of grit. Um, I I've been really happy for the time that I've made to read nonfiction books. And now when I'm in a strategy meeting, it's very, very common for me to say, ooh, 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 I know what book you need to read here. And uh it's really easy to get sucked into all of the busy work in general, but finding time to do real deep thinking about your business and to work on your business, to go through coaching, all of that is incredibly valuable time. And for me, it has made all the difference.
All right. Would one more word of advice be get a VA?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Just to wrap up, then shout outs. You've been blessed with a lot of incredible people in your life. Anybody that you would like to kind of give a shout out to right now?
Sure. Well, my team is pretty incredible. I am lucky to have a wonderful right hand in Sarah Hardy, who's my VP of Operations, and then Emily Elsner Twesme is, I should say, Dr. Emily Elsner Twesme uh, is in charge of starting our virtual assistant school, Rock Solid VA Academy. My husband, Sean, of course, always gets a shout out, as do my wonderful parents, Jeff and Tony Quinto.
All right. Thank you. And if someone wanted to learn more about MyVA.rocks, how would they contact you?
They just go to MyVA.rocks and set up a call.
All right. Well, thanks, Ashley. It was a pleasure to see you today and do our interview. And thanks for being on the show.
It is my pleasure. Thanks, Corey.